I never saw it coming. One phone call, and my entire world fell apart. I could still hear the words echoing in my head, like a cruel melody I couldn't escape. I'm done. I want a divorce. The words didn't make sense at first. I thought maybe I had misunderstood. Maybe the connection was bad. But no. It was crystal clear. And as much as I wanted to shout, to beg her to explain, the truth was already burning through me, consuming me with its sharp, unforgiving edge. She didn't just want out, she had already been out for months. Her voice had trembled slightly when she said those words. Not because she was upset, but because she knew what they would do to me. Are you? Are you seeing someone else? I asked, barely able to breathe. There was a long pause. My heart started beating faster, too fast. Too painfully fast. I think you already know the answer, she said, and there it was, the betrayal. It hit me like a punch to the gut, hard and sudden, leaving me gasping for air. Her affair hadn't just been a mistake. It wasn't a one-night slip-up. It was months. Months of lies, of promises broken, of me standing in the dark, thinking everything was fine. I couldn't believe it, but the signs were there. How had I missed them? The late nights at work, the secretive phone calls, the way she looked at me like I wasn't even there. I should have seen it. I should have known. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in my throat. I trusted you. She sighed. I know. But I can't do this anymore. She didn't even sound sorry. Not like I wanted her to. It was just done. Like flipping a switch. And in that moment, I realized that the woman I loved had already checked out of this marriage long before I knew it. Please, don't, my voice cracked as I pleaded, but she was already turning away, walking toward the door. I'm sorry. But it's over. I couldn't do anything but watch as she left. I stood there, frozen, the weight of it crashing down on me. She walked out the door, and everything I thought I knew about my life fell apart. She wasn't coming back. Not after what she'd done. And I was left standing in the wreckage, surrounded by the ghost of a life I used to love. The days after felt like a blur. Time didn't seem real. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Each minute felt like a lifetime, each second a slow burn that I couldn't escape. I wandered through the house aimlessly, like I was searching for something that could make sense of this mess. But there was nothing. Nothing but silence. The emptiness in the house mirrored the emptiness inside me. I kept thinking I'd wake up from this nightmare, that she would come home, and everything would go back to normal. But that was a fantasy. I couldn't stop thinking about it. How long had she been seeing him? Who was he? Was he better than me? Did she love him the way she used to love me? I didn't know. And it drove me insane. The betrayal gnawed at me, like a wound that refused to heal. It was my fault. I should have known. I should have paid attention. I should have seen the signs, but I didn't. I trusted her with everything. I gave her all of me, and she ripped it out of my chest without a second thought. I sat down on the couch, staring at the empty walls. Everything I had built, everything I had worked so hard for, was slipping through my fingers. My career, my family, my future, it all felt meaningless now. Her betrayal wasn't just an attack on me. It was an attack on everything I believed in. On everything I had sacrificed for. I had worked so hard to build a life for us. And now, I was left with nothing but the pieces of a shattered dream. How had it come to this? I tried to sleep that night, but the darkness felt suffocating. The bed was too big, too empty. I could still smell her perfume in the sheets, and the memories flooded back, our late-night conversations, our plans for the future, all the times we'd laughed together. I turned over, trying to block it out. But the truth kept clawing its way to the surface. She had been lying to me. And I was too blind to see it. She was gone. For good this time. And nothing would ever be the same. I couldn't change the past. But I could decide what to do next. I had to. I wasn't going to let this break me. I had nothing left but myself. But that was enough. I would rebuild. I would survive. And I would make her regret the day she walked out on me. I wasn't sure how, or when, but I was going to get through this. I had to. There was no other choice. I thought that after the divorce, the worst would be over. But it wasn't. No, it was just the beginning. The beginning of a nightmare that I couldn't escape. The first few days were the hardest. I had no idea what to do with myself. I'd spent so long trying to hold everything together, trying to convince myself that I had it under control, that now, with nothing left to hold on to, I felt completely lost. I was in freefall, and there was nothing but darkness around me. I didn't know what to do first. Pack up my stuff? Leave the house? Sell everything? It all felt so final. And I hated it. One morning, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at the man who used to be me. The man who used to be loved. The man who had been happy. That person was gone now, replaced by a stranger. My eyes were red from lack of sleep, my face hollow. I looked older than I had the day before. But it wasn't just the physical changes, it was the emptiness inside. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I had nothing. I tried calling her. Over and over, I dialed her number, but each time, it went to voicemail. She didn't want to talk to me. Of course she didn't. Why would she? She had moved on. She was already living her new life with him. She didn't need me anymore. I couldn't even bring myself to pack up her things. How could I? It felt like erasing her from my life completely. But the house, this house, it was slowly falling apart. Just like everything else. I wasn't sure if it was the stress, or if the house itself was reacting to her leaving, but things started to break. The pipes started leaking. The faucet in the kitchen wouldn't stop dripping. The lights flickered like there was a ghost in the walls. And the walls themselves? Cracks started appearing, small at first, but soon they spread like a disease. The foundation was crumbling. The house was crumbling. It felt symbolic. Like the very thing I had tried so hard to protect was now falling apart with no way to stop it. And every crack, every leak, made me think of her. Of how she had torn apart everything we had. Everything we'd built. I called a plumber to fix the pipes. I called an electrician to check the wiring. But nothing seemed to help. Every time I walked through the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I thought maybe it was just the grief. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But I started to wonder, was it just the house that was falling apart, or was it me? I ran into Leah a week after the divorce. Leah, my wife's best friend. She was the one person I thought I could trust. The one person I thought would understand. We met at the local cafe, and as soon as she saw me, her eyes flickered with something, guilt, maybe? Or pity. I didn't know. I didn't care. I sat down across from her, staring at the cup of coffee in front of me. It felt like there was a weight on my chest. I wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't know where to begin. How could I even explain the mess I was in? "How are you doing?" she asked softly, her voice almost apologetic. "I know it's been hard." I didn't answer right away. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? "I'm great. Everything's perfect now that she's gone?" Instead, I muttered, "I don't know, Leah. I can't believe it. I thought everything was fine. I thought we were happy." I met her gaze, searching for some kind of answer, some kind of explanation. "What happened? Why didn't you tell me?" Leah shifted uncomfortably. She didn't meet my eyes. I didn't know how to say it. "You know how she is." She didn't want anyone to know. It was complicated. Complicated? I repeated, my voice rising. "She was having an affair, Leah. How could you not tell me? You were supposed to be my friend. You were supposed to look out for me." She flinched at the anger in my voice, but she didn't apologize. "I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't know how to." She begged me not to say anything. "Begged you?" I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "She begged you to lie for her? To watch me get destroyed and say nothing?" Leah was silent for a long moment. She didn't say anything else. She just stared down at her coffee, her fingers trembling on the cup. Finally, she spoke, but her words didn't make me feel better. "She didn't mean to hurt you, you know. She was just lost. She didn't know what she wanted." "I'm sorry, but—" "No," I cut her off, my voice firm. She knew exactly what she was doing. She just didn't care. It was all a game to her. Leah didn't argue. She just looked at me with those sad eyes, as if everything was already decided. As if I was the one who had lost. But in that moment, I realized something. Leah didn't really know what had happened between me and my wife. She wasn't privy to the lies, the betrayal. She was just as much a victim of my wife's manipulation as I had been. But none of that mattered anymore. I wasn't angry at Leah. I was angry at her. At the woman who had left me to pick up the pieces. The woman who had destroyed everything I'd worked for. Leah stood up, her chair scraping across the floor. She didn't know what else to say, and neither did I. So, she left. I didn't watch her go. I just sat there, staring at the table, feeling emptier than I had before. But the worst part? I wasn't sure if I was angry at her anymore, or if I was just angry at myself. The house was still falling apart. So was I. I didn't know when the anger started to settle in. It wasn't like a sudden storm, it was more like a slow, simmering burn. I'd wake up some mornings and feel it already, thick in the air, smothering every thought. At first, I told myself it was grief. It was pain. It was confusion. But after a while, I realized it wasn't just that. It was anger. Rage, even. Every time I thought of her, of how easily she walked away, of the lies she'd told, of the betrayal, I could feel my blood boiling. How could she do this to me? How could she tear apart everything we'd built without a second thought? Every minute, every hour, I found myself growing angrier. And it wasn't just at her. It was at myself, too. At the version of me that had been so blind. So naive. I had to confront it. I had to let the anger out somehow, or it would eat me alive. One night, after another long day of trying to ignore the cracks in the house, and in my mind, I went for a walk. It was dark outside, and the streets were quiet. My thoughts were louder than anything else. I could still hear her voice in my head, telling me it was over. I could still see the look on her face when she walked out of that door, without a single ounce of regret. I found myself in front of a bar, the neon sign flickering like some cruel reminder of the world I used to know. The world I had lost. I didn't hesitate. I walked in. The bar was dim, the kind of place that smelled like stale beer and cheap whiskey. But at that moment, I didn't care. I needed something to numb the rage inside me. I needed something to make me forget. I found a seat at the bar and ordered a drink, my hands shaking slightly as I reached for the glass. As I took the first sip, I felt the heat slide down my throat, burning away the edges of the anger. But it didn't last long. It only made the emotions sharper, more focused. And then, as if on cue, she walked in. Leah. My wife's best friend. She looked different, her face drawn, like she hadn't slept in days. She caught my eye almost immediately, and I could see her hesitate for a second, as if she wasn't sure whether to come over or not. But then she did. Mind if I sit? She asked, her voice soft, almost tentative. I didn't answer at first. What was there to say? The last time we'd spoken, I had pretty much told her off. She was the one who had known about the affair, the one who had kept the secret. And yet here she was, sitting in front of me, as if nothing had happened. Do you? I finally asked, my voice rough. Leah's eyes dropped to the counter, and she nodded. I get it, she said quietly. You're angry. You have every right to be. I almost laughed. Angry? That's an understatement. But I'm not angry at you. She looked up, confusion flashing across her face. You're not? No, I said, my voice tight. I'm angry at myself. For being such an idiot. For trusting her when I should have known. Leah's face softened. I think we're all to blame in some way, you know. I couldn't stop myself. You knew. You knew what was going on, and you said nothing. You were supposed to be my friend. She flinched, but she didn't back down. I didn't know how to tell you. She made it clear she didn't want anyone to know. And I didn't want to lose my friendship with her. I was scared. I took another drink, the alcohol doing little to dull the anger that was still simmering just below the surface. You were scared? I repeated, shaking my head. You didn't want to lose her, but you lost me. You let me get crushed, and you did nothing. Leah opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked like she was struggling to say something, but it wasn't what I needed to hear. I didn't need her apologies. I didn't need her excuses. What I needed was for this anger to go away. But it wouldn't. You're angry. I get it, she said softly. But maybe this is all a lot bigger than you think. I stared at her, not sure what she was trying to say. What could she possibly mean? This wasn't just about me being angry. This was about her breaking everything I had. The betrayal. The lies. The way she'd taken it all away from me. This isn't just about her, I said, my voice cracking slightly. This is about everything. About all the years I wasted trusting her. And trusting you. Leah opened her mouth again but didn't speak. She just looked at me, like she was waiting for something. I knew I should have said something else. I should have let go of the rage. But I couldn't. I didn't want to. I turned away from her, downing the rest of my drink in one go. The burn felt good. It felt real. When I looked back, Leah was gone. She'd slipped out quietly, like a shadow disappearing into the night. I didn't know what had happened between us. I didn't know if we'd ever be able to repair the damage. But one thing was clear, the anger hadn't gone away. Not yet. And it wouldn't anytime soon. I couldn't escape the thought of her. No matter how hard I tried, her face kept appearing in my mind. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, her betrayal still fresh in my memory, like a scar that wouldn't heal. She was everywhere, her absence was everywhere. It was like she'd taken up space even after leaving. I spent days trying to keep myself busy, forcing myself to focus on work, to ignore the silence that had swallowed my house. I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want to remember her laughter, the way she used to smile when she was happy, how we'd planned for the future together. But there was a point when all the distractions, all the noise, couldn't drown it out. I had to know. I had to understand what had happened, why it had happened. So, I did the one thing I should have done a long time ago. I went through her things. It wasn't something I was proud of. I knew it was wrong, an invasion of privacy. But I couldn't help myself. I needed answers. The first place I went was the closet. Her clothes were still hanging there, all neatly arranged, as if she'd never left. I pushed them aside, searching through the drawers, hoping to find some clue. I didn't know what I was expecting, some secret letter, a phone number written down, something that would explain the unexplainable. And then I found it. A journal. It was tucked away in the back of her drawer, hidden under a pile of old receipts. The leather cover was worn, the edges frayed from years of use. My heart pounded as I held it in my hands. I shouldn't have done it. But I had to know. I had to understand. I opened it. The first few pages were filled with mundane details, lists, notes, things she'd written about her day. But then, as I flipped further, I found something that made my stomach drop. She had written about him. The other man. The one I had never known about until now. It wasn't just a fling, a random affair. It was months of planning, of secret meetings, of lies. She had been seeing him for a long time. She'd been keeping him hidden from me, from everyone. My hands were shaking as I read, but I couldn't stop. I had to keep going. I had to know just how deep the betrayal ran. There were details about their meetings, about the things she'd told him, about the way she had felt when she was with him. She had written about how she'd fallen for him, how she felt alive in a way that she hadn't felt with me in years. It was as if she'd been living a double life. And I had been the fool, the man who was blind to everything. I kept reading, page after page, until I found the most damning entry of all. The one that made everything fall into place. Tonight, she had written, I'm telling him it's over. I'm going to leave him for good. I can't keep lying to him. I don't want to hurt him anymore, but it's over. It's been over for a while. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. It wasn't just the affair that hurt, it was the realization that she had already made up her mind. She had been planning this for a long time. She hadn't been torn or conflicted. She had been waiting for the right moment to leave me. I slammed the journal shut, my breath coming fast, my heart pounding in my chest. The anger, the betrayal, it was all too much. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how easily she had walked away from me. How easily she had thrown away everything we had built together. But I couldn't keep dwelling on it. I had to focus. I had to move forward. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me, too. About rebuilding my life, finding a way to get out of this mess she had left behind. I couldn't change what had happened. But I could change how I dealt with it. I put the journal back in the drawer, out of sight. I didn't need it anymore. I had all the answers I needed. And now, all that was left was the fallout. I sat there for a while, trying to calm my racing thoughts. The house felt even emptier now, even more oppressive. But somehow, that emptiness didn't feel as suffocating. It felt like a clean slate. Like a chance to start over. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her take everything from me, not my dignity, not my peace of mind. I was done being the victim. I couldn't stop thinking about the journal. Every word, every confession, it haunted me. She had planned it all, and I had been blind to it. I felt a rage burning inside me, but I also felt something else, a cold, heavy emptiness. I didn't know which was worse, being betrayed, or realizing that I had been living in the dark for so long. But there was no time for wallowing. The house was falling apart, literally, and I couldn't stay in that place any longer. I needed to make a decision, and fast. Could I fix things? Should I just walk away and leave it all behind? The next morning, I sat in the kitchen, staring at the mug of coffee in front of me. The silence was suffocating. I couldn't even bring myself to look at the empty space across the table where she used to sit. Every corner of the house felt like it was mocking me, reminding me of everything I had lost. I thought about the decision she'd made to leave me. She didn't even seem to hesitate. It was over for her. But what about me? Was I ready to walk away from everything we had built? Was I strong enough to do it? I wasn't sure. What I was sure of, though, was that I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep reliving the betrayal over and over in my mind. I had to move forward. But how? I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to burn everything down, send her a message, show her how much she had hurt me. But revenge didn't feel like the answer. What good would it do? I wouldn't get her back. I wouldn't get the life we once had. All it would do is make me bitter, and I wasn't ready to be that person. I wanted to forgive her. I wanted to move on and let go of the anger. But forgiveness didn't feel like it was for me. It felt like something I wasn't ready for, not yet. I wasn't sure if I wanted revenge or closure. Maybe both. Maybe neither. But what I knew for sure was that I had to take control of my own life again. I couldn't keep letting her control my emotions, my thoughts. That afternoon, I went for a walk to clear my head. The world outside seemed like it was going on without me, oblivious to the storm raging inside. People walked by, couples holding hands, friends laughing, while I felt like I was drowning. I tried to push it out of my mind, but I couldn't. I thought about my options. I could go after her, confront her, demand answers. But I knew that wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't make me feel better. And it would just keep me stuck in this cycle of hurt and anger. Then, there was the other option. I could walk away completely. Leave everything behind. The house, the memories, the pain. I could pack up my life and start fresh. But what did that mean? What did I have left? I couldn't even bring myself to look at the house, let alone leave it behind. And that's when it hit me. The choice wasn't between revenge or forgiveness. The choice was whether I wanted to stay stuck in the past or start living again. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of the past. I couldn't keep letting her dictate how I felt. I had to move on, not for her, but for me. I had to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I could choose to be better. I could choose to let go of the anger, even if it took time. I could choose to reclaim control over my life, no matter how long it took to heal. But it wouldn't happen overnight. It wasn't going to be easy. I took a deep breath and made the decision. I wasn't going to chase after her. I wasn't going to beg for answers or plead for forgiveness. I was going to move forward. It was time to let go of the past. I made a call that afternoon. A real estate agent. I needed to get rid of the house. I needed to cut ties with everything that reminded me of her. It was the first step. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. It wasn't a big thing, just a flicker. But it was enough to remind me that life wasn't over. I was still here. I was still breathing. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was on my own path again. The pain was still there, lingering, but it wasn't going to define me. It wasn't going to consume me anymore. I had a choice. And I was going to make the most of it. The house was still falling apart, both physically and emotionally. It seemed like every day brought a new issue. The roof leaked. The pipes froze. The floors creaked under the weight of memories I couldn't shake. It was as if the house itself was mourning the life that used to be here. I couldn't escape it. Every crack in the wall felt like a reminder of the cracks in my life. The house had once been full of life, laughter, arguments, plans, love. Now it was hollow. Silent. I could still hear echoes of the past, of her voice calling my name, but it was all just a fading memory. I couldn't stay here much longer. I knew it. And yet, every time I thought about leaving, about cutting ties completely, something held me back. It was more than just the house. It was everything that had happened here. The good, the bad, and everything in between. But the more I tried to hold on, the more I felt myself slipping. And that wasn't just because of the house. It was because of her. I ran into Leah again a few days later. I wasn't expecting to, but there she was, standing at the entrance of the coffee shop I always went to. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I thought she might turn and leave, like she had before. But instead, she stepped forward, hesitated, and then sat down across from me without a word. I hadn't spoken to her since the night at the bar. Part of me was angry with her, still hurt by her silence. But the other part of me couldn't help but wonder if she was more of a casualty in all of this than I had realized. She hadn't betrayed me the way my wife had, but she had been complicit. She had kept secrets from me. And I hated her for it. "How's the house?" she asked, her voice quieter than usual. She didn't meet my gaze. I took a deep breath and looked at the table. "It's falling apart." Literally and figuratively. She didn't say anything at first. She just nodded, her fingers tapping nervously against her cup. "I'm sorry, you know. I never meant for this to happen. It's just, she didn't know how to handle everything. And I didn't know how to help." I looked up at her then, my patience wearing thin. "Help? You didn't help. You watched me get destroyed and did nothing. You didn't help, Leah." Her face fell, and she looked down at her cup. "I know. And I hate myself for it." I scoffed. "You hate yourself? That's supposed to make me feel better?" She winced at the harshness in my voice but didn't argue. "No, of course not. But I've been living with the guilt. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't want to lose her as a friend. She was going through something too, and I thought." "You thought what?" I interrupted. "That it was okay to let me go through hell while you sat on the sidelines? That you could stay out of it, untouched by all the lies?" She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. The anger was bubbling up again, and I didn't want to hold it back anymore. I didn't want to hurt you, Leah said softly, her voice trembling. But I know I did. And I'm sorry. I wish I could have done more. I didn't know what I expected to hear from her. An apology didn't change anything. It didn't take away the hurt. It didn't fix anything. I don't need your apology, I muttered. What I need is to move on. To forget all of this. I stared at her for a long moment, my anger still simmering. I don't know what you want from me, but I can't keep going in circles like this. Leah looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. I get it. But I want you to know that I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted you to get hurt. I stared at her, weighing her words. I didn't know what to make of them. But I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. I was tired. Tired of the lies. Tired of the pain. Tired of everything. Maybe that's the problem, I said quietly. Maybe you didn't want me to get hurt, but you didn't care enough to stop it. I didn't wait for her response. I got up, throwing a few bills on the table to pay for my coffee, and walked out of the shop. The next few days were a blur. I spent more time at work, just trying to keep my mind occupied. It wasn't a solution, but it was the only thing that kept me from spiraling. I still couldn't shake the image of the house, of everything falling apart, both physically and emotionally. I needed to fix something. I needed to fix myself. But it wasn't going to be easy. The anger, the resentment, it wasn't something I could just push away. It was inside me, gnawing at my insides, and every time I thought I was getting a handle on it, it would flare up again. But there was something different now. I knew I couldn't stay stuck in the past forever. I couldn't keep letting her control my life. She had already walked away. It was time for me to do the same. It was time for me to rebuild. But I couldn't do it in that house. I called the real estate agent again that afternoon. The house would be sold. I was done living in the past. I had to move on. I had to make a change, even if it was just something small, something I could control. The house was falling apart, but I didn't have to. The decision had been made. The house was on its way out, and with it, the last piece of the life I thought I'd had. The sale wasn't going to bring her back, it wasn't going to fix the past, but it felt like a step in the right direction. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of something. Maybe not everything, but something. I still didn't know what to do with myself. Without the house, without the memories, what was left? Who was I supposed to be now? I didn't have answers. But I knew I wasn't going to sit around waiting for them to come. I threw myself into work more than ever. My career had always been my anchor, but it had also been a distraction, an excuse to avoid the emotional chaos swirling inside me. Now, it felt different. There was no more hiding behind the facade of everything is fine. I had no choice but to face the mess I'd been left with. I found myself actually looking forward to the long hours at the office. I knew I was pushing myself, trying to drown out the noise of everything else. But it worked. For a while, I was too busy to feel the weight of the past. But then, out of nowhere, I ran into her again. I hadn't seen my wife in weeks. Not since the night she walked out. She hadn't tried to contact me, no calls, no texts. And I hadn't tried to reach out to her either. There was nothing left to say. I thought I was done with her. But life had a way of throwing curveballs when you least expected it. I was at a conference for work, standing in the hallway, when I saw her. She wasn't looking at me, but I saw her before she saw me. My heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. It was like my body betrayed me, like all the feelings I'd been burying flooded back in an instant. She was standing there, talking to a colleague, laughing, her eyes bright, her smile so damn familiar. She looked happy. And that was the hardest part. Because I didn't know if I could still be happy. Or if I even wanted to be. For a moment, I stood frozen, watching her. She looked just the same, but so different at the same time. My emotions were all over the place, rage, sadness, longing, all tangled up together. I couldn't figure out what I was feeling, but I knew one thing for sure, seeing her, seeing how easily she was moving on, it felt like a punch to the gut. And then she turned, and she saw me. Her face softened, but there was something in her eyes that I couldn't read. Regret? Guilt? Or maybe she was just surprised to see me after everything. "Hi," she said, her voice cautious, like she didn't know what to expect from me. I could feel the tension in the air. Neither of us knew what to say. But she didn't back away. She didn't turn and walk off like I thought she would. "Hi," I replied, my voice hoarse. I didn't want to say it, but I couldn't help myself. "You look good." It wasn't a compliment, not really. It was more of an observation. Because she did look good. Too good. I didn't know how to feel about it. I wasn't angry at her for moving on, hell, I didn't even have a right to be. But it stung. It really did. "Thanks," she said, her eyes darting away for a second. "I didn't expect to see you here." "No, me neither." I tried to smile, but it felt forced. Everything felt forced. "How's everything? I mean, how's your life?" Her eyes met mine then, and I could see it, she was still carrying something. Guilt, maybe, but also an emptiness. She had taken everything she wanted, and I was still standing there, broken but somehow, surviving. She was the one who had left. She was the one who had made the choice. But she looked unsure. "I'm fine," she said quickly, her voice slightly too high. She fidgeted with her hair. This has been hard. You know?" I almost laughed, but the bitterness stopped me. She wanted sympathy. She wanted me to believe that this was difficult for her. But I didn't. Not anymore. Not after everything. "Really?" I said, my voice low, almost cold. "Because it didn't seem that hard when you walked out on me." Her face fell, like I had slapped her. The words were out before I could stop them, but I didn't regret saying them. I didn't care how much it hurt her. She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "No. No more talking. I'm done with it." There was a long, uncomfortable silence between us. She didn't argue. She didn't beg me for forgiveness. She just stood there, looking at me with those eyes that I once thought I knew better than anyone. But I didn't know them anymore. And that was the point. "I don't want anything from you anymore," I said, my voice steady, but my insides were still on fire. "I'm not angry at you anymore. But I'm not going back. I'm done." I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned and walked away, ignoring the gnawing feeling in my chest. I didn't care what she thought. I was done. The next day, something shifted inside me. For the first time in months, I felt like I had control. I wasn't the broken man who had been abandoned. I wasn't the victim of her lies. I was the one who had survived. And I was finally starting to believe it. It wasn't a victory, but it was a start. The days after our encounter felt different. I wasn't sure if it was the confrontation that had changed me or if it was just time, slowly working its way through the wreckage of my life. But something had shifted. It wasn't anger anymore. It wasn't regret. It was just calm. A quiet acceptance that I wasn't going to go backward. I wasn't going to chase something that was gone. I wasn't going to beg for answers or make her regret what she had done. I had let it all go. But that didn't mean I wasn't still haunted by the past. I kept myself busy. I focused on work, on getting the house sold, on the little things that made my days feel less empty. But I knew I couldn't keep running from what had happened forever. I couldn't avoid the conversation that was coming. The one where I would finally say everything I'd been holding back. It wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about closure. It was about me standing up for myself, finally. And then she came back. It was late one evening, about 2 weeks after I had last seen her, when I got a text. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a while, my thumb hovering over the screen, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to delete her number and pretend she never existed. But the other part, the part that was still hurting, wanted to know why she was back now. Why after everything? Why now? I didn't respond right away. I wasn't ready. But later, after too much thinking and not enough sleep, I found myself typing out a response. "Where?" A few minutes later, she replied. "I'll be at the park in an hour." I didn't want to go. I didn't want to face her again. But I had made up my mind. This was it. This was the conversation where I would finally get to say everything. No more silence. No more pretending. It wasn't about making her feel bad. It was about me, finally standing up for myself. I arrived at the park a little early, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. The evening air was cool, and the park was quiet. I could see her sitting on a bench, looking out at the small lake, her posture rigid, like she was preparing for something. She was alone. When she saw me, she stood up quickly, and for a brief second, I saw that familiar look in her eyes, the hesitation, the guilt. But it was gone just as quickly as it came. "I didn't think you'd come," she said quietly, her voice so different from the way she used to speak to me. So much smaller, like she was afraid of my response. "I wasn't sure I would," I said, keeping my distance. "But here I am." "What did you want to say?" She looked at me for a long time, like she was gathering her thoughts. "I don't know how to say this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I was selfish. I didn't think about how much I was hurting you. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could fix it. I wasn't sure if I could listen to this. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to. But I had to. I had to hear her say it." "You think you could fix it?" I asked, my voice cold. "After everything you did? You think an apology is enough?" Her eyes flickered with pain, but she didn't back down. "No. It's not enough. I know that. But I need to say it. I need to say I'm sorry for the way I hurt you. For everything I did. For lying to you. For not being honest. I can't take it back, but I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you." I took a deep breath, feeling the anger rise again, but I forced it down. I wasn't going to fall for it. I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me into forgiving her. Not this time. "You should have thought about that before," I said, my voice barely steady. "Before you decided to throw everything away. Before you decided that I wasn't enough for you. I gave you everything. And you," I stopped, clenching my fists again, feeling the heat of the anger burn in my chest. "You didn't even care." She looked down at the ground, her shoulders slumping. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to stop myself from ruining everything. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there and listen to her. It wasn't enough. None of it was. I wanted more than this. I wanted to scream, to yell, to tell her everything that was still inside me. But I didn't. I just let the silence hang between us for a long time. I don't need you to fix it, I said quietly. I need you to understand that you can't fix us. We're done. You're done. Her face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw a tear slip down her cheek. I never meant for it to end like this. Well, it did, I said, my voice final. It's over. And I'm okay with that. For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just stood there, her eyes locked on mine, as if she was trying to figure out if I was really done. And then, finally, she nodded. Goodbye, she whispered. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't look back. I wasn't going to let myself. It was over. And I was free. I didn't expect it to feel like this. Walking away from her, from everything I thought I had, was supposed to bring relief. It was supposed to feel like a weight lifting from my shoulders. But it didn't. It wasn't as simple as that. The day after our final conversation at the park, I woke up with the usual ache in my chest. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't the sharp, raw pain I'd been feeling for weeks. It was something else. A dull ache. A reminder that things would never be the same, but that maybe, I was finally starting to accept it. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't feel like facing anyone, not even myself. Instead, I sat on the couch, looking at the empty space where everything used to be. The house was silent, the only sound being the occasional creak of the floorboards. It was strange, how quiet everything was now. The silence used to be unbearable. But now, it was just calm. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the pain, the anger that had consumed me. But then, I thought about the part that hadn't been easy to face, the realization that I had been holding on to something that was already gone. I had been holding on to her, onto the idea of us, when in reality, I was already living in the past. It wasn't just the house that had fallen apart, it was me, too. I had built my entire life around her, around the belief that we were happy, that everything would be fine. And when she walked away, it felt like I had nothing left. But now, I could see it. I could see that I had everything I needed to rebuild. Not her. Not the house. But me. And for the first time in months, I wasn't scared of it. I wasn't afraid of moving forward anymore. The next few days passed in a blur, as I worked through the final stages of selling the house, wrapping up loose ends. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when I found myself lost in thought, wondering if I had made the right decision. But those moments didn't last long anymore. I had begun to accept that I couldn't change what had happened. The day the house was officially sold, I stood in the empty living room, looking at the bare walls. There was no furniture, no photos, no reminders of the life that had once filled this place. It was just a house now. I wasn't sad, but there was something bittersweet about it. The house had been a home once. And now, it was just another memory. I took a deep breath, closed the door behind me, and left. In the weeks that followed, I found a new apartment. It was smaller than the house, more modest, but it was mine. I spent time unpacking, organizing, and settling into the space. It wasn't perfect, but it was a fresh start. The silence in my new place wasn't as deafening. It wasn't that I had replaced the emptiness, I'd simply learned to live with it. To make peace with it. I didn't need to fill every corner with distractions. I just needed to be. I started doing things for myself again. I went to the gym, read books, took long walks around the city, letting myself be present in the moment. I wasn't running away from my feelings anymore. I was allowing myself to feel them: anger, sadness, regret, but also hope. Hope that I could rebuild, piece by piece. It wasn't easy. Some days, it felt like I was moving forward in slow motion. But I was moving forward. One evening, a few weeks later, I ran into Leah again. It was at a small cafe, a place I'd been to a few times before. She was sitting at a table by herself, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. When she saw me, she didn't look away. She didn't turn her back. She just smiled, faintly, like she wasn't sure if I'd be angry to see her again. I walked over to her table, not sure what to expect. "Hi," I said, my voice calm. "Hi," she replied, her voice softer than before. There was an awkward silence between us, one that I didn't know how to break. She didn't seem like she was waiting for me to say anything in particular, but I knew there was something she wanted to tell me. Something she needed to say. "I'm sorry," she said, her words hesitant. "For everything. I know I didn't make it easier, and I know I should have done more. I want you to know I never meant for you to get hurt." I nodded, but I didn't say anything. I didn't need to hear an apology. What I needed was closure, and that's what I was finally getting. "I know," I said, my voice steady. "I don't need you to apologize. I just need to move on." Leah looked down at her cup, her fingers tracing the rim. "I understand. And I hope you do. I hope you're okay." "I am," I said quietly. "I'm getting there." We sat in silence for a while, not uncomfortable, but not exactly close either. It wasn't the conversation I thought I'd have with her, but it was enough. More than enough. It was closure. I wasn't angry with Leah anymore. I wasn't angry at anyone. And that, I realized, was the most freeing thing of all.